The stars were dying one by one, and Jake Martinez knew his people would be next. He stood on the bridge of the last Alterian warship still fighting, watching through the main screen as another colony world burned. Orange flames danced across the surface of Kepler-7, and black smoke rose into space like fingers reaching for help that would never come. "Sir, we're getting reports from all sectors," said Lieutenant Amy Chen, her voice shaking. "The Zephyrians have taken control of the mining stations on Vega Prime. They've destroyed the medical facilities on New Haven, and sir," she paused, swallowing hard, "they've started moving civilians off-world. We don't know where they're taking them." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. In just 3 months, the Zephyrian Empire had torn through the Alterian Federation like a knife through paper. What had once been 7 peaceful worlds full of doctors, teachers, and researchers was now a collection of burning ruins and empty space stations. The Zephyrians didn't just want to defeat them, they wanted to erase them completely. "How many ships do we have left?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer would hurt. 12, sir. Maybe 13 if the repair crews can get the Starlight back online. 12 ships. The Alterians had started this war with over 200 vessels. They weren't built for fighting, but they had tried their best. Their doctors had become soldiers overnight. Their teachers had learned to fire weapons instead of inspiring young minds. But it hadn't been enough. It had never been enough. The Zephyrians were simply too strong, too many, and too cruel. Jake walked to the communication station where Dr. Lisa Harper was working on something that looked like a complicated puzzle of wires and screens. Lisa was the smartest person Jake had ever met. She could speak 17 different alien languages and had spent her whole life studying how different species talk to each other. "How's the project coming along, Lisa?" he asked. She looked up at him with tired eyes. Dark circles surrounded them, and her usually neat hair was messy from days of non-stop work. "It's ready, Jake. I've managed to boost our communication array enough to send a signal across the entire galaxy. Every species with radio technology should be able to receive it." "And you really think someone will answer?" Lisa was quiet for a long moment. She looked out at the burning world on the screen, then back at her equipment. "Honestly? Probably not. Most civilizations we know about are either too far away, too weak to help, or too scared of the Zephyrians to get involved. But Jake, what else can we do?" She was right. They had tried everything else. Their military was broken, their people were scattered or captured. Their worlds were either destroyed or under enemy control. This desperate message to unknown aliens was their last hope. "The High Council approved the transmission an hour ago," Jake said. "Send it whenever you're ready." Lisa nodded and turned back to her equipment. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls, setting up the most important message in Alterian history. Jake watched her work and thought about how strange life could be. 3 months ago, Lisa had been teaching alien languages at the University of New Athens. Now she was trying to save their entire species. "Jake," called Lieutenant Amy Chen from her station. "We're getting another report from the surface of Kepler-7. "What now?" "The Zephyrians aren't just burning the cities. They're taking apart our libraries, our museums, our art centers. They're destroying everything that makes us who we are." Jake felt anger rise in his chest like hot metal. The Zephyrians didn't just want to kill the Alterian people. They wanted to make sure that nothing was left to remember them by. No books, no paintings, no music, no proof that they had ever existed. "They want to erase us from history," he said quietly. "Sir," Lisa called from her station, "I'm ready to transmit." Jake walked over to stand beside her. On her screen he could see the message she had prepared. It was written in 17 different alien languages, each translation carefully checked and rechecked. The words were simple, but powerful. "Read it to me one more time," he said. Lisa cleared her throat and began to speak. "To any civilization capable of receiving this transmission, we are the Alterian Federation, and we face extinction. The Zephyrian Empire has declared total war upon our worlds. We seek any assistance, any alliance, any hope. Our coordinates are attached. We do not expect anyone to answer, but we must try." The message was short, but it said everything that needed to be said. They were dying. They needed help. They didn't expect anyone to care, but they had to ask anyway. "Send it," Jake said. Lisa pressed a button and the message shot out into space at the speed of light. It would travel through hyperspace communication networks, bouncing from relay station to relay station, reaching every corner of the known galaxy. Most species would delete it without reading it. Others would read it and decide it wasn't their problem, but maybe, just maybe, someone would care enough to help. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had given everything for their worlds. Amy Chen had lost her parents in the first attack. Lieutenant Mark Stevens had watched his home city get destroyed from orbit. Engineer Patricia Bell hadn't seen her children in 2 months because they were hiding in refugee camps on the far side of the galaxy. They were all tired, scared, and heartbroken, but they were still fighting. "What do we do now?" asked Amy. "Now we wait," Jake said, "and we keep fighting for as long as we can." Outside the ship, space was quiet except for the distant glow of burning worlds. Somewhere out there, traveling, faster than light itself, their message was racing toward unknown stars and alien minds. Jake didn't know if anyone would answer their call for help, but he knew they had done everything they could, and sometimes that had to be enough. Admiral Kate Sullivan was drinking her morning coffee when the message that would change human history arrived at the Deep Space Monitoring Station in Colorado. She had been watching the sunrise through the large windows of the command center, thinking about how peaceful Earth looked from up here in the mountains. 6 months ago, humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel for the first time. The world felt bigger and smaller at the same time, knowing that the stars were no longer impossible to reach. Admiral Sullivan called Sergeant Ben Parker from the communications desk. "You need to see this. We've received a transmission from outside our solar system." Kate set down her coffee cup and walked over to Ben's station. In all her years of military service, she had never heard of aliens contacting Earth. Most people thought humanity was alone in the universe. "Where did it come from?" she asked. 3,000 light-years away, ma'am. The signal came through some kind of hyperspace communication network. It's been translated into English, but I think it was originally written in languages we've never seen before. Kate looked at the message on Ben's screen. As she read it, her coffee grew cold and forgotten. The words were simple, but they painted a picture of something terrible happening far away in space. "Get me President Cross on the secure line," she said quietly, "and wake up everyone on the Defense Council. We need an emergency meeting." 2 hours later, Kate sat in a conference room in Washington, D.C. with the most important people in human government. President Amanda Cross sat at the head of the table, looking tired but alert. General Ryan Foster had flown in from the Pentagon. Secretary of Defense Patricia Bell was there with her laptop full of military reports that suddenly seemed much less important. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," said President Cross. "We've received a message from aliens asking for help in a war." "Yes, ma'am," Kate replied. "The Alterian Federation is being destroyed by something called the Zephyrian Empire. Based on their message, they have maybe a few weeks before they're completely wiped out." Dr. Kevin Chen, Earth's leading expert on the possibility of alien life, leaned forward in his chair. "This changes everything we thought we knew about the galaxy. Not only are there other intelligent species out there, but they're fighting wars that span multiple star systems. The question is," said Secretary Bell, "should we get involved? We don't know anything about these aliens. For all we know, the Alterians could be the bad guys in this war." Captain Alex Rodriguez had been quiet until now. He was the first human to travel to another star system, having returned just a month ago from a reconnaissance mission to Alpha Centauri. "I've been out there," he said. "I've seen what space is like beyond our solar system. It's big and it's dangerous, and if there are empires out there conquering peaceful worlds, then Earth needs to know about it." General Foster pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's military capabilities. "Let's talk about what we're actually considering here. We have 37 ships capable of faster-than-light travel. Most of them are exploration vessels, not warships. We've never fought a battle in space. We don't know what kind of weapons these aliens use or how their technology compares to ours. But we do know how to fight," said Captain Maria Santos, who commanded Earth's first space-based fighter squadron. Humans have been at war with each other for thousands of years. We've learned things about combat that aliens who live peaceful lives might never have figured out. The debate went on for hours. Some people argued that Earth should stay hidden and safe. Others said that humanity had a responsibility to help people who were being attacked by bullies, even if those people lived on different worlds. Lieutenant Amy Williams, who had grown up in the ruins of the global unity wars, finally stood up to speak. She was young and hadn't said much during the meeting, but when she talked, everyone listened. "My parents died in the last big war on Earth," she said. "They were fighting against people who thought that being strong gave them the right to hurt the weak. Before they died, they told me that the most important thing in life was standing up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves." She looked around the room at all the important faces. "These Alterians are asking for help against someone who wants to destroy their entire civilization. They're doctors and teachers and scientists, not soldiers. If we ignore them, we're no better than the bullies who killed my parents." The room was quiet for a long moment. President Cross looked at each person around the table, then back at the alien message on her tablet. "What kind of response time are we looking at?" she asked Kate. "With our fastest ships using the new quantum drive technology, we could reach their location in 10 days, Kate replied. "And our chances of actually making a difference in this war?" Kate was honest. "Unknown, ma'am. We're going in blind against an enemy that has conquered hundreds of worlds. But we have some advantages. Our technology developed differently than theirs probably did. We might surprise them." Dr. Chen added, "There's also the fact that these Zephyrians probably don't know Earth exists. They won't be expecting us." General Foster nodded slowly. "The element of surprise has won many battles throughout human history." President Cross stood up from her chair. "I'm going to ask for a vote. All in favor of sending a military response to assist the Alterian Federation?" One by one, hands rose around the table. Secretary Bell was the last to raise hers, but she did it with determination. The vote was unanimous. "Then it's decided," said President Cross. "Admiral Sullivan, you'll command the mission. Take our best ships and our best people. General Foster, I want you to prepare a battle plan. Dr. Chen, work with our linguists to make sure we can communicate with these Alterians when we get there." Kate felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders like a heavy coat. In 10 days, she would lead humanity's first journey to war among the stars. They might succeed and save an entire civilization. They might fail and never see Earth again, but they were going to try. As the meeting ended and people began to leave, Amy Williams approached Kate. "Admiral, I'd like to volunteer for the mission." "You're barely out of training, Lieutenant." "Yes, ma'am, but this is why I joined the military. This is exactly what my parents died fighting for." Kate looked at the young woman's determined face and saw something that gave her hope. "Report to the Defiance at 0800 tomorrow. We launch in 72 hours." Outside the conference room windows, Earth continued its peaceful rotation around the sun. But everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and they were about to prove that sometimes the best way to introduce yourself to the galaxy was by standing up to bullies. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Alterian territory and found hell waiting for them. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the ESV Defiance, watching the main screen with growing anger. 3 massive alien ships were slowly destroying everything in orbit around a beautiful blue and green planet. The ships were huge, each one twice the size of Earth's largest vessel, and they moved with the confidence of predators who had never met anything that could fight back. "Those must be the Zephyrians," said Lieutenant Amy Williams, who was serving as Kate's communications officer for this mission. "And those smaller ships running away from them?" Kate asked. "Alterian civilian transports, ma'am. They're trying to evacuate people from the planet, but the Zephyrians are hunting them down one by one." Kate watched as one of the enemy ships fired a bright red beam at a fleeing transport. The smaller ship exploded in a ball of fire and metal. She could see escape pods launching from the wreckage, but the Zephyrian ship was already turning toward another target. "How many people were on that transport?" she asked quietly. Amy checked her instruments. "Sensors show it was carrying about 300 civilians, ma'am. Families with children." Kate felt something cold and hard settle in her stomach. These weren't soldiers fighting soldiers. This was murder. Open a channel to the Zephyrian ships, she ordered. Channel open, Admiral. Kate took a deep breath and spoke in her clearest voice. Zephyrian vessels, this is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Earth Defense Force. You are ordered to cease hostilities immediately and withdraw from the system. The response came back quickly in heavily accented but understandable English. Unknown. Vessels, you will identify yourselves and withdraw or be destroyed. This sector belongs to the Zephyrian Empire by right of conquest. Colonel Nick Davis, commanding the assault carrier ESV Ranger, spoke up on the fleet communication channel. Admiral, they don't seem very impressed with our polite request. Kate allowed herself a small, cold smile. Then let's make a proper introduction. All ships. This is Admiral Sullivan. Weapons free. Show them what Earth diplomacy looks like when someone threatens innocent people. The battle that followed would be talked about in military academies across the galaxy for the next 100 years. The Zephyrians had been conquering worlds for decades. They were used to fighting enemies who followed predictable patterns, who used standard military formations, who fought the way wars had always been fought in space. They expected the human ships to line up and exchange fire like gentlemen. Instead, Captain Maria Santos led her fighter squadron in what looked like a suicide run, straight at the largest Zephyrian ship. At the last second, her pilots scattered in 12 different directions, confusing the enemy's targeting computers. While the big ship tried to track multiple small targets, Santos brought her fighters around behind it and hit its engines with precision strikes. That's not how space combat works, muttered the Zephyrian commander, watching his mighty dreadnought lose power and begin drifting helplessly. But the humans were just getting started. Major Chris Johnson launched his Marines, not at the enemy ships but at the debris field left by the destroyed transport. His people spread out among the wreckage, using the metal chunks as cover while they fired portable missiles at the Zephyrian vessels. The aliens found themselves being attacked by targets they couldn't even see properly. "Where are they?" shouted a Zephyrian gunner as another missile struck his ship's hull. "How can they hide in empty space?" The answer was that humans had spent centuries learning to fight dirty. They used every trick, every advantage, every sneaky tactic their species had developed during thousands of years of warfare against each other. The Zephyrians had superior numbers and bigger guns, but they had never faced an enemy that refused to play by the rules. Colonel Davis brought his assault carrier in close to the second Zephyrian ship, so close that their own weapons couldn't target him without hitting each other. His Marines used cutting tools to slice through the enemy hull and board their ship directly. Within minutes, they had taken control of the bridge. But it was Sergeant Ben Parker who became the hero of the battle. His fighter took a direct hit that destroyed his weapons and damaged his life support systems. Most pilots would have retreated to fight another day. Instead, Ben aimed his dying ship at the command bridge of the lead Zephyrian vessel and pushed his engines to maximum power. "This is for the transport full of families," he said over the radio. And then his fighter smashed through the enemy bridge at full speed. The explosion crippled the Zephyrian flagship and threw their entire fleet into confusion. Without their command ship coordinating their movements, the alien vessels found themselves easy targets for the human fleet. 4 hours after the battle began, the surviving Zephyrian ships were running away as fast as their damaged engines could carry them. The space around the Altarian planet was filled with debris from destroyed enemy vessels. "Admiral?" called Amy Williams from her station. "We're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. Put it on screen." The face that appeared on the main display was clearly not human. The being had large, gentle eyes and skin that looked like it was covered in soft fur. When it spoke, its voice was filled with wonder and gratitude. "Unknown ships, this is Commander Jake Martinez of the Altarian Defense Force. We cannot believe what we have just witnessed. In 4 hours, you have accomplished what we could not do in 3 months of fighting. Who are you?" Kate stepped forward so the alien could see her clearly. "Commander Martinez, this is Admiral Kate Sullivan of Earth. We received your distress call." Jake's large eyes grew even wider. "Earth? We have never heard of your world. How did you travel so far to help people you do not know?" "Because," Kate said simply, "someone asked for help, and we were able to give it. That's what decent people do." The silence that followed was broken by Amy Williams reporting new contacts on her sensors. "Admiral, we have multiple ships approaching from all directions. They're not Zephyrian." More alien faces appeared on the communication screens. A bird-like creature introduced itself as Captain Veltar of the Centaurian Republic. A being that looked like it was made of living crystal identified itself as Ambassador Kree of the Stellar Assembly. One by one, representatives of species that had been hiding from the Zephyrian Empire came forward to meet the humans who had done the impossible. "We have been monitoring your battle," said Veltar, his voice filled with excitement. "Your tactics, your courage, your refusal to accept defeat. We have never seen anything like it." Kate looked around at the faces of dozens of alien species, all of them staring at her small human fleet with something that looked like hope. "Well," she said, to Amy Williams quietly, "I guess we're not going home anytime soon." Amy smiled. "I don't think anyone on Earth would mind, ma'am. We came out here to help people, and it looks like there are a lot more people who need help." Outside the ship, the rescued Alterian transports were returning to their planet, carrying families who would live to see another day, because humans had decided that doing the right thing was more important than staying safe. News of the human victory traveled through the galaxy faster than light itself, and Admiral Kate Sullivan quickly discovered that being famous across thousands of star systems was more complicated than she had expected. 3 days after the battle, at Alteria Prime, her fleet was surrounded by ships from species she had never heard of. Each day brought new arrivals, new faces on the communication screens, and new requests for meetings. The humans had gone from being unknown to being the most talked about species in the galaxy practically overnight. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Amy Williams, looking overwhelmed as she tried to manage the flood of incoming messages, "we now have representatives from 47 different civilizations asking to speak with you. The hegemony of Keth wants to discuss military cooperation. The Free Worlds Coalition is offering to share their star maps, and the Stellar Assembly is asking if you would be willing to address their entire government." Kate rubbed her tired eyes. "What about our new Alterian friends? How are they handling all this attention?" Commander Jake Martinez appeared on the main screen, and Kate could see that he looked as exhausted as she felt. Behind him, his bridge was busy with activity, as Alterian officers worked alongside human technicians to repair their damaged ships. "Admiral Sullivan," Jake said, "I wanted to thank you again for what your people have done, but I also need to warn you about what's happening. Word of your victory has spread to every corner of the galaxy. Species that have been hiding from the Zephyrians for decades are coming out of the shadows. They all want to know how you defeated ships that everyone thought were unbeatable." "And what are you telling them?" Kate asked. Dr. Lisa Harper, the Alterian scientist who had sent the original distress call, joined Jake on the screen. "We're telling them the truth. That humans fight differently than anyone else we've ever seen. That you don't give up even when the situation looks hopeless. That you're willing to risk everything to help people you've never met." Before Kate could respond, Amy interrupted. "Admiral, we have an urgent message coming in from Earth. It's President Cross." Kate's heart skipped a beat. "Put her through on a private channel." President Amanda Cross appeared on a smaller screen, and Kate could see the worry in her face. "Kate, we're getting reports from our deep space monitoring stations. The Zephyrian Empire is mobilizing. Intelligence suggests they're putting together the largest fleet they've ever assembled." "How large are we talking about, ma'am?" "Over 200 ships, Kate, and they're all heading toward your position. It looks like their emperor has decided to deal with the human problem personally." Kate felt cold fear settle in her stomach. Her fleet had defeated 3 Zephyrian ships through surprise and superior tactics. But 200 ships was a different problem entirely. "What are my orders, ma'am?" President Cross was quiet for a moment. "Officially, you're ordered to use your best judgment to protect Earth's interests and the lives of your crew. Unofficially, Kate, I'm asking you to do what you think is right. These alien species are looking to humanity for leadership. If we run away now, they'll be left to face the Zephyrians alone." After the communication ended, Kate called a meeting with her senior officers. The conference room on the Defiance was crowded with the best military minds humanity had to offer, But everyone looked worried. "Let's be honest about our situation," said Colonel Nick Davis. "We're outnumbered 70 to 1. Even with our tactical advantages, those are impossible odds." Captain Maria Santos nodded grimly. "My pilots are good, but they're not miracle workers. We can't fight 200 ships and expect to win." Major Chris Johnson, who had led the boarding actions in the previous battle, spoke up. "What if we don't fight them head on? What if we do what humans do best and find a different way to solve the problem?" "What do you mean?" Kate asked. "I mean, we've been thinking about this like a traditional military problem, but maybe the solution isn't military at all. Maybe it's political." Dr. Kevin Chen, who had come along as humanity's expert on alien cultures, leaned forward with interest. "Go on." "The Zephyrian Empire controls hundreds of worlds, right? But how many of those worlds joined willingly? How many are just conquered, territories held down by force?" Amy Williams, who had been quietly taking notes, suddenly looked up with excitement. "You're talking about rebellion. If we could convince the conquered worlds to rise up at the same time the Emperor's fleet is away fighting us." "Exactly," said Chris. "We turn their strength against them. Every ship they send to fight us is a ship that's not protecting their territory." Kate felt a spark of hope. "But how do we communicate with conquered worlds? How do we coordinate a galaxy-wide rebellion?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Veltar of the Centaurian Republic had been listening to the human discussions through the open communication channel, and his bird-like face appeared on the main screen. "Admiral Sullivan," he said, "my people have been in contact with underground resistance groups on dozens of Zephyrian-controlled worlds. We've been too afraid to help them openly. But if humanity is willing to lead a coordinated effort, more alien faces appeared on other screens. Ambassador Kree of the Stellar Assembly, Commander Zorax of the Free Worlds Coalition, and dozens of other species representatives all wanted to join the conversation. "We have been waiting for someone to give us hope," said Ambassador Kree, her crystal-like voice ringing with determination. "Your victory at Alteria Prime has shown the galaxy that the Zephyrians can be defeated. If you're willing to lead us, we will follow." Kate looked around at all the alien faces on her screens. These beings came from worlds she had never heard of, had technologies she didn't understand, and had been fighting the Zephyrian Empire for longer than humanity had known aliens existed. But they were all looking to her small fleet for leadership. "What do you need from us?" she asked. Veltar spoke first. "Coordination. The resistance groups are scattered and poorly organized. They need someone to bring them together, to give them a plan they can all follow at the same time. We also need proof that humans will keep fighting," added Commander Zorax. "Many worlds will only rebel if they believe they have a chance to win. They need to see that Earth won't abandon them if the fighting gets difficult." Kate made her decision. "Amy, start putting together a communication network that can reach every resistance group in Zephyrian space. Chris, I want you to work with these alien representatives to coordinate simultaneous uprisings. Maria, your pilots are going to need to hit targets across the galaxy to support the rebellions." "What about the Zephyrian fleet heading our way?" asked Colonel Davis. Kate smiled, and for the first time in days, it was a real smile. "We're going to do what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds. We're going to improvise." Over the next 72 hours, the space around Alteria Prime became the center of the largest military coordination effort in galactic history. Human officers worked alongside alien strategists to plan attacks on Zephyrian supply lines. Resistance fighters on conquered worlds received detailed instructions on how to disable enemy communication networks at precisely the right moment. And in the deepest parts of space, sensors detected the approaching Zephyrian armada, led by Emperor Krax himself aboard a ship larger than anything humanity had ever seen. "Admiral," said Amy Williams as she finished setting up the last communication relay, "the Emperor's fleet will reach us in 18 hours. Kate nodded and activated the galaxy-wide communication network. Across hundreds of star systems, on thousands of worlds. People stopped what they were doing to listen to the human admiral who had given them hope. "People of the galaxy," she began, Tomorrow we face the largest fleet the Zephyrian Empire has ever assembled. They expect us to be afraid. They expect us to run. They expect us to surrender. But they don't understand what they're facing. They're not just fighting humanity. They're fighting everyone who believes that freedom is worth defending. And together, we are going to show them that the age of conquest is over. Emperor Krax arrived at Alteria Prime with the largest fleet in Zephyrian history, expecting to crush the troublesome humans in a single, overwhelming attack. Instead, he found empty space. Where are they? He demanded from the bridge of his massive flagship. The ship was 3 miles long and carried enough weapons to destroy an entire planet. Around it, 200 other Zephyrian vessels waited in perfect formation for orders to attack. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're detecting no human ships in this system. It appears they have fled." Krax felt satisfaction wash over him. These humans had gotten lucky once, but when faced with the full might of the Zephyrian Empire, they had run away like cowards. It was exactly what he had expected. "Begin scanning for their escape route," he ordered. "We will hunt them down and destroy them before they can cause any more trouble." But 3,000 light-years away, Admiral Kate Sullivan was not running. She was standing in the command center of a hidden asteroid base, watching dozens of screens that showed Zephyrian territories across the galaxy. Her plan was about to begin. "All teams, this is Admiral Sullivan," she said into her communicator. "Operation Starfall is now active. Begin Phase 1. Across the galaxy, human ships emerged from hiding places near Zephyrian supply depots, communication hubs, and isolated military bases. They had spent the past week sneaking into position while the Emperor's fleet was traveling to Alteria Prime. Now they struck simultaneously at targets hundreds of light-years apart. Captain Maria Santos led her fighter squadron in an attack on the main Zephyrian fuel depot in the Vega system. Her pilots used improvised explosives to destroy storage tanks that contained enough fuel to power a fleet for months. Major Chris Johnson's Special Forces teams infiltrated the primary communication relay station in the Centauri sector. Within minutes, they had planted charges and disappeared, leaving the Zephyrians unable to coordinate their scattered forces. Colonel Nick Davis commanded a strike team that hit the Zephyrian Military Academy on Kepler Prime. They didn't try to hold the planet, but they rescued hundreds of alien prisoners and destroyed the Empire's main training facility. Each attack was small, quick, and designed to cause maximum disruption with minimum risk to human lives. But together, they created chaos throughout Zephyrian space. "Sir," called Emperor Krax's intelligence officer, "we're receiving reports of attacks on 17 different systems. Our communication networks are failing. Supply lines are being cut. And sir, there are reports of uprisings on conquered worlds." Krax felt cold anger replace his earlier satisfaction. "Uprisings? Yes, sir. Resistance groups on dozens of planets have begun attacking our garrison forces. They appear to be coordinated. And sir, they're using human military tactics." The truth was that Kate Sullivan had done something no one in the galaxy had ever attempted before. She had turned the Zephyrian Empire's greatest strength into its greatest weakness. The Empire was so large that it was impossible to defend everywhere at once. By attacking many small targets instead of trying to fight the main fleet, the humans had forced the Zephyrians to spread their forces thin. "Order all available ships to return to defend our territory," Krax commanded. "Sir, that would mean recalling 60% of the fleet." "Do it." As Zephyrian ships began leaving Alteria Prime to deal with the attacks on their territory, Kate put Phase 2 of her plan into action. She opened a communication channel that reached every world in Zephyrian space. But it wasn't Kate who spoke. It was Amy Williams, the young lieutenant who had volunteered for the mission, because she believed in fighting for people who couldn't fight for themselves. Amy had spent weeks learning to speak the Zephyrian language, and now her voice carried across their empire with a message of hope. "People of the Zephyrian Empire," she said in perfect Zephyrian, "you have been told that conquest is strength, that domination is survival. But look around you. Your emperor has led you into a war you cannot win, against people you have never met, for reasons that benefit only him. On worlds across the galaxy, Zephyrian citizens stopped what they were doing to listen to the alien voice speaking their language. You don't have to live in fear, Amy continued. You don't have to watch your children become soldiers in wars of conquest. There is another way. Other species in this galaxy have learned to live in peace, to help each other instead of destroying each other. You can choose that path too. The effect was immediate and dramatic. On Zephyrian worlds that had never known anything but military rule, civilians began demanding answers from their leaders. Why were they fighting this war? What had the Alterians done to deserve destruction? Why should their sons and daughters die for an emperor's pride? Emperor Krax watched his empire begin to crumble not through military defeat, but through the power of simple questions. Planets that had been loyal for centuries suddenly declared independence. Military units refused orders to attack civilian populations. Government officials resigned rather than continue serving a regime built on conquest and fear. How is this possible? Krax demanded. They're just words. But they weren't just words. They were ideas that the Zephyrian people had never been allowed to consider. The idea that strength could be used to protect instead of to conquer. The idea that different species could work together instead of fighting each other. The idea that there was value in helping strangers simply because it was the right thing to do. Within 72 hours, the Zephyrian Empire had lost control of over half its territory. Emperor Krax found himself commanding a fleet with nowhere to go, and an empire that no longer wanted him as its leader. The final confrontation came not in space, but in the ruins of the Imperial Palace on the Zephyrian homeworld. Krax stood, alone in his throne room, deserted by his guards and abandoned by his government. When Kate Sullivan and Amy Williams walked through the broken doors, he was waiting for them. You think you have won? He said, his voice filled with bitter anger. You have only delayed the inevitable. The strong will always dominate the weak. That is the way of the universe. Amy Williams, now wearing the uniform of a colonel and carrying the title of Earth's first galactic ambassador, looked at the fallen emperor with something that might have been pity. Maybe you're right, she said quietly. Maybe the strong will always have power over the weak. But today the strong chose to use that power to protect people instead of hurt them, and that changes everything. Kate stepped forward. Your empire is finished, Krax. Your people have chosen freedom over fear, but you still have a choice too. You can spend the rest of your life trying to rebuild an empire of conquest, or you can help us build something better. Krax looked at the two human women who had destroyed everything he had built, not through superior weapons or larger armies, but through the simple idea that people deserve to be free. For the first time in his long life, the emperor of the Zephyrians had no answer. Outside the palace, across the galaxy, billions of people were learning what it meant to live without fear. They were discovering that the strongest force in the universe wasn't the power to destroy, but the courage to help. And they were building something new, something better, something that would make sure that when desperate people called for help among the stars, someone would always answer. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and it had all started with humans who heard a cry for help and decided that doing the right thing was more important than staying safe.